Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings. I go by CSU Ram 88 across the daily fantasy industry, and I'm here at Fantasy Labs doing a model preview of the Players Championship, which I'm ecstatic for. Had a great start to the golf season. Last couple weeks have not treated me so well. If you've been following along, you know some of the guys I've taken that have not done great. Hoping to bounce back here, feel really good about the model, and feel really great about the process this week. I think I've identified some golfers I really like that the data backs up, and hoping that the results will go with what looks good here. So let's go through my model first. And if you look here, I have long-term adjusted round at 25. I pretty much lead this in a similar vicinity all the time, and this is just to pick up how good of a golfer is. And this is one advantage I think you can have versus just the straight odds is just looking at a long-term adjusted round score. And it's a big part of my model, and it backtests well. I have long-term green and regulation at 5. I have long-term driving accuracy at 3 and long-term driving distance at 0. So big difference from this week's model versus other models is I emphasize driving accuracy, and I did not emphasize driving distance at all. And I emphasized short-term driving accuracy actually a little bit more than long-term. So there's some stats here that I'll pick up, some of the golfers that are playing well and that are good ball strikers, because that's really what you need here at the Players. So long-term driving accuracy, 3 points. Long-term scrambling score, basically, well, it's not exactly a scrambling score, but basically bogey avoidance when they don't hit the green over the past 75 weeks. I have that for 2 points. In addition to that, I have recent adjusted round at 12. Recent green and regulation score at 30. This is probably my biggest thing. I really think this helps identify the guys who are in good form right now, who are striking the ball well. Maybe they aren't putting as well. Which could be lowering their score and lowering their expectation with the odds. But it's a really big factor for me, and it's shown to be predictive based on our models. So I think it's especially important this week. I have it even higher than I normally do, even though it is a huge part of my models almost every week. Recent driving accuracy score, I have 10 points this time. I decided to go more recent, so I'm really just trying to capture the recent accuracy and green and regulation scores here. And that's something that I think is important for this tournament. You want the guys who are really in good current form and who are accurate. This is a course where you don't need driver. It's not a bomber's course on the majority of holes. And you need the guys who are not going to put it in the water or get themselves in big trouble. So those are stats I'm weighting a lot. I have a recent scrambling score at 3 points. And then I also have the course adjusted round score at 10 points. This is just basically a course history metric. And I have this weighted a little bit higher than normal because we do have a lot of course history here, and I think it's very applicable. If you want more information on just how I'm handling and how Colin, our PGA director, is handling the course history side of things for this tournament, listen to our podcast. We went into it pretty in depth, and certain guys are definitely popping because of that. So that's the model. Hope that helps you guys. I think, again, one of the most important things to do, and a big part of my process is making multiple models and adjusting multiple models to see who's popping consistently and which guys are popping based on the angle you want to take for the week. So I think it's important to identify an angle that you have, what you're looking for, and identifying which guys pop in those specific situations. So with this model, Stenson's the top guy, which is great. He's a lock for me in cash. I will have him in almost all my cash game action, if not all. I think he is probably the best play overall. I really, really like him this week. Great driving accuracy. If you watch a lot of golf, you know Stenson never hits his driver because he can't ever put it on the course. It's unbelievable how bad he is with his driver. But his 3-wood, which he hits about 280, 285 yards, is incredible. And it's part of the reason he's one of the most accurate guys on tour is he hits that 3-wood pretty much every time, even on par fives. So I love that for Stenson, and I love the way the course sets up for him. He's had great course history here as we scroll over. His course form, his adjusted rounds is 69. He checks all the boxes for me. Great green regulation, great driving accuracy, and a golfer that I will have in a lot of lineups, tournaments, and cash games. Hideki Matsuyama is the next guy that makes sense to me. I really like him. Good green and regulation guy. Great adjusted round long term. Solid recent form as we look here. He's played well, really well recently, even at Wells Fargo, where he almost missed the cut, but then battled back with a great round on Sunday. And he has good course history here as well. So Soren I'm not going to pronounce this. You see him here. Soren, our guy Soren. I talked about him on the pod. You'll see he has no pro trends here, but the way I'm setting up my model, he's rating well with that price. I'm probably not going to have too much exposure, but I'm not going to ignore the model completely. This is an outlier thing for me, so when I see someone pop on a model that I'm not sure of, what I often will do is put them in a tournament lineup just to see what happens. I don't think he'll be very highly owned, and he's popping in my model, and let's see what happens. Rory McIlroy, next guy, is the most pro trends. I'm not going to spend too much time on Rory, but he's the elite DraftKings golfer. His style is absolutely elite. He says he's going to make adjustments here. He's one of the best players in the world. I wouldn't be surprised to see some very sharp people on him. I'll probably have some tournament exposure, and we'll see how everything breaks in the next little bit to see what my final lineups look like, but I probably won't have too much exposure to him. I'm going to try to kind of do quick hits on the rest of these guys just so I can cover the majority of guys. Russell Knox, another guy, is popping for me. I probably have some tournament exposure. Still figuring out what to do with him in cash. If I will include him, we'll see. He hasn't played recently, so that's a tough thing for me to kind of understand. Sergio, love him. Cash games, tournaments. We talked extensively about him on the pod. This is a guy who's an example of elite course history, which that's what I'm going to use a lot going forward, is the guys who have this elite course history. You can see his adjusted round 68.1. He's just been incredible here. If he gets top 10 this year, it'll be 4 top 10s in a row for him. Bernard Langer, the Masters play. He's rating well because he's a great green and regulation guy. We'll see how much exposure I have to him, but I'm definitely going to take him in some tournaments. Fitzpatrick is another guy who I generally like. He burned me last time at the Heritage. He said that was his favorite course, and he missed the cut. So that was really frustrating with Fitzpatrick, but he rates well here, has great green and regulation stats and driving accuracy stats. So he's a guy who will be sprinkled across my GPP teams for sure. Like Brandon Grace a lot. Don't mind him in cash. I think him and Patrick Reed are both excellent options. He's rating higher than Reed in this model, but I actually like Patrick Reed slightly more than him. I think they're both elite plays, and I think you'll see a lot of sharp people on both these guys. Kuchar, perfect course fit, perfect stats. My only concern with him is he might be heavily owned, but I'll have some exposure. Emiliano Grillo, we talked extensively about on the podcast. By far my favorite play, who's in the cheaper range. Very bullish on Emiliano. If you play me in cash games, you take one of my games, it's likely he'll be there. Justin Rose, sharp play this week in my opinion. Like the way he's doing everything except putting. There's a lot of noise in putting, and there's a lot of variance in putting. Hopefully you can get it figured out this week on the Bermuda greens. 10-3 is a reasonable price for one of the best players in the world, and I have no problem taking him. Like Jason Day as a contrarian tournament play, I think everyone's going to be on Fowler, Spieth, and McIlroy. I think Day is the least owned of the big four. I think there's really more of a big three with Day, Spieth, and Rory, and I think Ricky still needs to do a little bit more to be in that tier, but for this golf tournament, he absolutely is in that tier as the defending champ, and this course fits him really well. So like Day, like Fowler a little bit more, but you have totally different ownerships in my opinion on these guys. I think Day will be much lower owned. Berger, not touching as much. He's a bomber, but he still rates well. I think he's a great golfer, but I'm probably not going to have too much exposure to him. Love Kevin Na this week. Again, perfect kind of course fit. One thing that surprised me is his green and regulation stats aren't very good, but they're not awful. But he is a good scrambler and a good putter. So I think Na will be a potential cash game option and a guy that we'll see how much exposure I have to in general. Danny Lee, like him for tournaments. Love Rafael Cabrera Bello for tournaments as well. Another guy who hits a lot of greens and has been playing very well recently. Bubba, tournament play only. Again, it's not really a bomber's course. Is Bubba going to be disciplined enough not to hit that pink driver all the time? Who knows? He's a tournament play only for me, and he is enticing because of his price, but not going to have too much. Molinari, like him quite a bit. I think he's a really sharp play at that price. Great stats for this course. Accurate driver, not a big bomber, but course fits very nice here for him. Like Billy Horschel a lot. He's from the area. I talked about him on the podcast. Really like him. We'll have cash and tournament exposure most likely to him. Casey, this is a guy who has poor course history, but I still like. I just think he's a much better golfer than what his price is listed at. We'll see where he ends up in terms of cash, tournaments, and exposure for me, but he's on my radar at this point. Talked about Fowler. The only concern with him is just ownership, really, and that's it. And then the other guys who just catch my eye really quickly here. Lingmerth, I think, is an interesting play. Love Luke Donald this week. Chris Kirk is interesting. Koepka I'm probably staying away from because it just doesn't have the right course fit and something's going on. But he is Seminole, so it won't surprise me if he played well here when everyone was off him. Spieth, who's rating really low, is probably my favorite star. If you ask me to pick one guy who's going to win the tournament, I think I take Spieth. If it's win only, second place doesn't count. I think I take Spieth. And sorry to delay so much on that, but it's close. I like Ricky. I like Rory. Wouldn't shock me if any of those guys won. And then just kind of scrolling through here, JB Holmes, the last guy I might talk about. This course does not fit him well, but we talk about him a lot on the podcast. He rates really well. I've been playing him a lot. Colin, this is one of his favorite guys, and we'll see how he plays this specific week. So hope you guys found this helpful, just kind of growing through this. You see some of these other guys who don't rate as well. Obviously, we'll have a couple Will Wilcox teams just for the DFS angle. Love that about him. He's a huge DFS supporter. And, of course, we'll have a couple different shares of some other guys that you see here. I guess Mark Leishman kind of caught my eye here as well. I've heard him touted a lot, and I think I might have some exposure to him. Not rating as well in this model, but certainly an interesting guy. He's not rating well because his driving accuracy has been poor, but definitely a solid player for that price. And the one other guy I wanted to mention who I didn't quite see in the models was Jim Furyk. Here he is. This is a guy, if you look at his long-term form, perfect spot for him. But again, coming off that huge absence, last week was his first week back. He missed the cut. I know it's an enticing price tag, but no cash game exposure for me. And I still haven't decided if I'll play him in tournaments just because I'm not sure of his ownership. So here it is again, my model, and some thoughts on the Players' Championship. This is a great week for golf. Really hope all you guys enjoy it. I'm hoping to bounce back with at least some good lineups this week, and really excited to enjoy this tournament throughout the weekend. So good luck to all you guys. Hope to see more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.